To start with, I think the reason I'm here primarily, I think why Karan thought I should be here is because both of us come from an army background. We're both the army brats, like they call the army kids. And we are here, of course, to talk about his book, The Battlefield Brothers, which clearly is about the army, is about people from the army, soldiers, their story, their lives. And I'm really glad that I'm here representing that, because I'm a very proud army kid. So Karan, I'm going to start with, I'm quite surprised that your debut book is based on the army. For those of you who do not know, Karan is somebody who believes in romancing life. He is a romantic at heart, and if ever he had to come out with a book, I would assume it would be romance, it would be love. But here he is, out with his first book, which is based on the army. So why did you debut with a war book?
Thank you, Barkha. There are two reasons she's here. She's a very dear friend, and she's a very fantastic orator. She's very articulate, and of course, she's a very proud Fauji brat. And clearly, she knows me because when she says everything about me espouses romance, it's true. That's the fulcrum of my existence. But I've written books before this. There are 4 books that I've written that all border around romance. But this is the first book that's been published. And why this as the first book to be published is because, one, like I said, I'm a very, very proud Fauji brat. And I thought I dabble with multiple things, and when I thought as an author, the first thing that I should put out there should be something that should make my father very proud. And the genesis of this book is a very interesting story. It all started while I was writing my other books, and I would share with my dad, and he would say, well, this must be about romance, I'm not interested. It must be about love, I'm not interested. And I would keep trying to urge him to read my books, and he would say, well, जब वो आएंगी market में, जब release होंगी तो मैं पढ़ लूँगा उन्हें. They were, my father and 3 of his brothers were actually having a lunch conversation about the 1965 and 71 war, and they were talking about the war like I talk about romance. It is unreal that they remembered everything that happened in those wars, and a war is a very macabre experience. It's not something that's something that you want to remember. But because they're gallant officers of the army, they remembered the incidents, and they remembered it as if with elephantine memory. And I casually said, Dad, this seems like a great story. It should be. And he just rubbished it, saying, don't be silly. Don't go on writing books about the family now. So I said, no, but I truly see some potential here. I see it's a beautiful story. And I got writing, and once the book was ready, I shared it with my uncles and my dad, and they read it, and my dad was so overwhelmed. He says, this is so beautiful, and it's so funny reading about myself, And given all those sentiments that I was going through at that point of time, I think nothing better than to start my innings as an author with a book called Battlefield Brothers. That's the truth.
Wow. So, again, for all of you who don't know, the book is an absolute true story, which is the story of Karan's father and his brothers and his 3 other brothers, right? And yes, you're also going to see some amazing pictures in it, which is rare, right? Because it's such a personal, private space, and he's put it out there for everybody to see. And as we all know, visually, when we see something, it just adds so much. You are actually able to visualize what he's written and imagine what it must have been like. Having said that, war films, war books, there are so many that are now coming out. Suhail, I'd like to ask you, why do you think there is this increase of books on war, or even films like we talk about, but books primarily, because books are converted into films? Why do you think there is this increase on war films? And
I think thank you so much for the question. I think it's never too late. I think there are 2 predominant reasons for it. Firstly, with the advent of the Indian publishing industry increasing, everyone's been looking for a story. And, obviously something that happened in 99 could not have been published in 95. So for something that happened in 99, we'll have to wait a few years before that happens. And that in itself is a tricky thing that, because for a book to be written, soldiers have to be martyred in that sense of the term. But how I choose to look at it is that, it always gives way to guts and glory, because that is when the true test of character of an individual comes through, because it's not only you, but representing the nation via you. Mr. Joshi came up with a beautiful quote in the beginning about a soldier, and why a soldier fights is not because he hates someone who's standing in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him. I think that's so pertinent. It is a phase. It's a good phase to be in, because a lot of these stories have been untold. And I keep on telling a lot of people that, as people from the literary fraternity, the greatest gift that we can give is the gift of the story. Because if we do not tell that story of not just one individual, but many others who lived around that would be lost for generations to come. Had Karan not written the book, nobody would get to know about these stories. So I think it's very important for us to recognize, because, he and I keep on having a lot of discussions. And it just so happened that, we were discussing and I said that, let's do something in the non-fiction space. And he said that, yaar, mere paas ek aisi story hai, something. I said that this is amazing, because you do not find, a war book like this. It's very different. In fact, it's very interesting how you draw parallels. So the first time one ever heard the name of Karan was in the Mahabharata. Now that is about a warring family. The book of this Karan is about a family at war. So there are interesting parallels, but it is such a different book. I remember I was sitting just at the breakfast table today and speaking to 4 authors about your book, and all of them said that, it's such a different story. So there are different flavors. People usually believe that if you're doing an army book, it has to be about a lot of fighting, but it is actually about the idea of soldiering. What is the honor that a soldier carries with him? What is the patriotism that they carry? And I think there are several stories which we can bring out, just to give you a differentiator. We've done a book with another lady from the army. Her name is Lieutenant Colonel Ankita Srivastav, and she was at, the forefront of the Kargil war. But the book is about how she, being, part of the Kargil war, and she had to leave the army because there were only a few years that, women could be a part of it. She went and she participated in a beauty competition, and she eventually won that. So whatever mayhem happened during the beauty contest, and how an army woman went over there and what were the strange things that she had to face, makes for a very interesting read. So there are several flavors that an individual brings to the table. And I think as long as we can do this, we must, because there's so many stories of brave hearts that we haven't done justice to till now. And it is an ongoing process, and we at the Book Bakers are always looking for that, because as you very rightly mentioned, Barkha, these stories get a further audience when it is converted into celluloid, right? And that's the whole idea. The commercials are a byproduct. The main idea is to get the story out, because the story will outlive the individual. And till such time we are able to do that, I think we'll be in a great space.
So, I absolutely agree with you. Like he said, there are so many different versions. When we think of a war book, we think of, okay, what was a war like? How many people did we kill? What really happened? But Karan's book, I can totally relate to, because it is also the story of the war that families from, from the army or Air Force or Navy, basically armies of soldiers, what they go through and the war that happens within. With that, Karan, I want to ask you, you have written about the war within your family. How difficult was it writing about somebody that you actually know?
It's a very, very heavy burden and a responsibility to carry, because, like I said, the human story is what we all aspire to, communicate to others. Especially when you're writing about your own father, you're writing about your own uncles, you don't want to go wrong, but you also don't want to eulogize them. You don't want it to become like some sort of a hero worshipping space. I know as children, we all worship, or we all hero worship our parents. So there's a very thin line, and you can easily cross over, because you're saying, look, this is such an impactful story. But the minute you see your father as a hero, and you want to write about a hero, you still have to humanize him. Because like Barkha said, like Suhail said, a good compelling story is not just about the war, especially about a war book. It's about the human being that fought a war. We all sleep very peacefully in our beds, but we have to understand that that liberty that you have today only happens because somebody is standing on the border, making sure that you get a peaceful sleep by risking his life. And he's a human being too. He has a family that's worried for him when he's, and in the 65 and 71 war, today you have satellite, you have cell phones, you can actually pick up the phone and call up your parents and say, I'm okay. You'll get minute-to-minute information. In 65 and 71, when you sent a son to a war, it was almost that you had signed a death warrant. Till the time he came back and you saw him in front of you, you weren't sure if he was alive. Now imagine what that would do to a mother, to a wife, to a child, to know that you have sacrificed your son or your husband or your brother to the army to defend the nation, and how do they deal with that process? What is the pain and the anguish that they go through? That's the story. Borders pe hum ladte hain, hamare jawan ladte hain. I think it's something that they do because they are made out of, Barkha would kind of understand this, that all the Fauji's are made out of very different metal. They're not like you and me. Can you imagine, I've cited this quite a few times, a man stands at minus 42 degrees in Siachen. He may not die from a bullet. He could die just by the sheer cold. He's willing to do that for not the kind of money that you possibly make in 10 days and he makes in a month. So money is not the motivation. He's standing there because he's decided that that's the honorable thing to do. That's what he's going to do as a soldier. So when a soldier stands there and defends all of us, that means he's not an ordinary man. And we all need heroes, no? Today the kind of heroes that we are creating out of, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to take a shot at even our industry. We are actors, we're not heroes. We just portray the real heroes. That's what we do. We do it as a part of our craft. But the real heroes are the ones that let you sleep peacefully because they guard your borders and they defend your nation.
True.
And their story is what we must communicate more.
It's actually interesting, Karan, because it can work either ways, So what happens, and what generally happens is that, we also do a lot of books where we have the personality who's working with us. Now what happens is that if you have a co-author, right, who's not necessarily related to that person, they are in a sort of dilemma because, if they humanize them, then the celebrity or the person may get slightly offended, right? So the question is that then are you doing a biography or a hagiography, right? That is a pertinent question. I think with you, of course, the advantage also was that you would have that comfort level to speak or write what you intended to, yeah? But I think what is most important is, and I think I'd like to congratulate Karan for that, is that, it's very important that the voice of the person about whom you're writing comes through. It should be as if that person is writing. Usually that task is of writing about one person. Here he had the task of writing about 4, and he stayed true to all 4 of them. So I think it deserves a huge round of applause.
Karan, Suhail, both of you, I would like to ask this. What kind of research goes into writing about a topic like this? Heroism, yet human. What kind of research goes behind it?
You like to take it? Sure.
One is whenever you're talking about something that's etched in history and available for us to all follow. So obviously you've got to get it right. I'll just casually mention something that Barkha has been a part of. If you guys have seen a series called Mukhbir, if you haven't watched it, it's quite a fantastic, and she's done a fabulous job in that. It's historical fiction in the sense that it's based on true facts and there's a fictional story around it. But when you talk about something which is historical, then you have to be very accurate. That means it's incumbent on you that you do your research. So similarly in Battlefield Brothers, it was very, very important that, I don't know, you guys might be too young, but if you, I can see a lot of young faces here. Are you guys all readers? I mean, do you guys read or, do you write? What sort of skew do you have? Let me just say, raise your hands, tell me. Do you guys read books? All of you? Okay. Are you familiar with the surrender ceremony? The picture of the surrender ceremony. 71 war, India won a comprehensive victory against Pakistan that led to the formation of Bangladesh. Are you guys aware of that?
Yep.
There's a very iconic picture in which General Arora is taking the signature of General Niazi, who's signing the, the instrument of surrender. And right behind General Arora is a tall Sikh gentleman. That's my father. So he's a part of that iconic picture. Now, when I talk about the 71 war, I've got to make sure that everyone that's part of history that was there, or someone who's reading about it, is accurately informed about this is what led to that. So that research is something that you have to be very focused on, and your information cannot just be Google, because Google can sometimes just throw you off. So there are multiple aspects of, there's military history, that there are books around it, there are officers that you talk to. In my case, what was very, very helpful was that all my father and 3 of his brothers have elephantine memory. So my father remembers the capture of Hajipir Pass. And when he spoke about it, he remembered it as if it has happened yesterday. He remembered it was 3 a.m. I wake up and I look and the shot is fired. And the man sat next to me, his head is blown off. And he's telling me in vivid detail. Then we went ahead, we took a forward onslaught, and how we captured Hajipir Pass, or how the Khemkaran battle was formed. If you read about this really in detail, you'd be surprised at what a legacy we have had as soldiers, as Indians, as army people. So that research that you do must be true and must be authentic, because it's etched in history now. Books never die. So some of you will read it today, some maybe years later, when you develop a taste for history or taste for military history or wanting to know about our heroes, will pick up a book and read it. You must be very, very authentic and correct. So the research is a very important aspect of writing any book which is based in history.
True. So there are 2 ways actually about how you go and research. So, one way is when the subject is alive and you get the information from the subject. In fact, I must connect you with one of our authors, Mr. Kulpreet Yadav, because we are doing a book with him which is called The Battle of Hajipir. Oh, yes. So it would be absolutely wonderful to connect you with him. So you get information from the personality. You get information from his friends, people who were part of the same regiment. There is another way that you write a book, and it is not a personality-driven book. It's a war-driven book. So the same gentleman that I was telling you about, Kulpreet, he did a book called The Battle of Rizangla. Now, the Battle of Rizangla was the battle that happened with China, and India actually won that battle. So now what happened was that 99% of the people who had participated in that war were no more. So how do you get that information? He researched, tracked down 2 people who were now 94 and 95, met them, went to the regiment, went to the battalion, got records, got information, read up. So if you see the bibliography, that bibliography has some 64 references. And that's how it helps you. So, there are various sources. What I'm trying to tell you is that it could bog down another person that, yaar, main kaise likhunga? Meko to kuch pata hi nahi, sab mar gaye, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya. There is information available. If you have the will to do it, you will find a way to do it as well. So I think that is what is necessary. And as he rightly mentioned, the stories have to come out, because we, I think, are failing as a society if we are not doing justice to our heroes. And that is what needs to be done.
I'm going to just pick on what Karan said, that the people from the army are made of something else, right? I'm just going to share a little something. Again, like he said, his father or, anybody who's been in the army talk about their instances of when they were in the 20s, like it just happened yesterday. That is how vivid the image is, whether it is seeing their, their partners give their lives, their partners get injured and all of that. They remember it vividly. My father has recently had a brain stroke where a part of his brain is slightly affected. He's had short-term memory lapses. He forgets a lot of things. But when he sits and talks to me, he remembers everything about the army, every war that he has fought, as vividly as Karan just mentioned. And that makes me believe that these people really are made of something else. The fight in them, I think that's something that none of us, I'm sorry to say, but ordinary people like us, I feel like a lesser mortal. I don't think none of us have that. And with that, my next question to both Karan and Suhail would be that, what do you think is the idea of soldiering? What is the idea of soldier to you?
I think, and this is something that I've captured in the book also, in Battlefield Brothers. If you guys are okay, I'm just going to give you a little brief about, maybe it'll help you make up your mind to buy the book and read about this book. I'm going to give you a short narration of the book. Yes, some people have walked in now, and as soon as they take their place, I'm going to start. Just find your places, don't worry. It's okay. Okay. So, in 1965, two brothers went to a war. They fought the war and came back as two different men. One thought the idea of war was something that he was meant to do because he belonged to an army officer. His grandfather was in the army, he was in the army. And the soldier in him evoked a very strong response that he felt he was born to be a soldier. That also means that he enjoyed the aspect of the battle, where he fought very valiantly and really believed that you bash on regardless because that's what you do for your country. The second brother came back as a different man, and he saw death, he saw macabre behavior of human beings, and he said, the man in the other uniform is not my mortal enemy. I'm defending my nation, he's defending his nation. Both of us are just doing duties, but we are essentially killing people. Both the brothers came back. The father was very proud of his sons. He thought they had done a great job, and he would kind of show them around everywhere and say, look, my pride, my joy, my two sons. And the mother was crestfallen, relieved but crestfallen that the father took so much pride in showing off his sons, because she constantly worried whether they would actually come back alive. Seeing the two brothers, the younger two siblings got enamored by the idea of joining the army. The mother felt otherwise. The father said, it's a great thing to do. I think all my sons should be sacrificed or should wear the uniform and go across. This divided the family into two camps. The father and the elder brother, who thought, why not? The younger brother and the mother, who thought it was a very bad idea. Finally, the elder one prevailed, and the third one joined the army. In 1971, one officer volunteered for a sure-shot suicide mission. His tank was blown into pieces, and he was declared missing in action. He was the third brother. This news reached the younger brother who was fighting in the Western Front. He called the elder one and he said, younger one's blood is on your hands. You are responsible for having killed a third brother and making a mother feel, she'll now be broken because his blood is clearly on your hands. And the eldest one, who's my father, had a moment of epiphany. Because his idea of soldiering was saying, do until I die. And he said, have they found the body? So the younger one said, no, they haven't. He said, then how do you assume he's dead? He might just be alive. It's his journey to find his brother across in 1971. That's what the book is all about. That he took leave, he went across the border. Whether he was able to rescue him, he was. The third brother was barely alive with 16 bullets, because when the Pakistan army had gotten to know that they were going to lose the battle, they just started massacring people left, right and center, including the POWs. And my chacha was one of them. It's his rescue mission of the youngest brother who came back, and as soon as the three brothers came back, the fourth decided to join the Navy. So that's what Battlefield Brother is in a nutshell. So, yeah. So like you said, clearly, both were battle-hardened, both of them believed this, but their ideas of soldiering were different because they were different human beings.
True. So I think when you are young and what you see in your formative years also plays a very crucial role. And I think, when you generally see, when you hear about the enemy, you are supposed to hate them. You made a very valid point. But I think, I was in the 3rd standard when Border released, and probably in the 9th when LOC came. Both the movies ended with a song. Now, for a normal viewer, it might just be a song. But if you understand the deeper meaning of the song, you'll understand what the idea of soldiering is. While LOC Kargil ends with the fact that you have won, but you also need to respect the soldiers who have lost their life, who fought with you. Spare a thought for them, because for your tomorrow they gave their today. And the song is Bas Itna Yaad Rahe Ek Saathi Aur Bhi Tha. 97 had an even more pertinent message, which was that the enemy is not your enemy. He's also doing a job. And the song is Mere Dushman, Mere Bhai, Mere Hamsaye. That is how it is, because you see at the end of Border that there is a soldier who's dying, and he conveys to the Indian soldier that please give XYZ things to my family in Pakistan, because I'll not be able to do that. And that's where you humanize, the people. And to do it through a song is so seamless, It may or may not reach to certain people, but it definitely did to me. And it just gave me a new direction and dimension to think about, So it's always not about hate, It's probably love for your own motherland. So that's what the idea of soldiering for me is.
That's deep insight, Suhail. Coming from the fact that you don't belong to an army family, wow, I'm looking at it with new light altogether. But thank you. That's extremely, extremely gracious of you.
Thank you so much.
Suhail, my next question is going to be to you that
Sure.
how do you pick a book on war, knowing that they will in all probability be similar? The stories are similar, right? Everything is about, like we said, war.
Yeah.
So how do you pick up a book and say, okay, this is an idea that I can work on a war book, and how do you think it would be different?
I think it's a very pertinent question, because largely if you look at it, I had a session just some time back which was on horror, and horror also suffers from the similar fate that, okay, someone will go somewhere, you'll find a ghost in that house, someone will come save you. So how do you differentiate, what are the different kinds of things that you can bring about? And similarly over here too, because at the end of the day, it does get into combat and how it happens. The basic point that I look at is how and the why of the book, right? There are different missions, there are different struggles, and there are different challenges that everyone faces. So while to cap it under one category would be that A fought with B and A won, you need to see in what terrain A was, what were the casualties that they suffered, how did they strike. So to just give you 4 examples, one is Karan's book, which is a family, at war, which is very different that you find. Then there was the book of, Lieutenant Colonel Ankita Srivastava, which is called From Olive Green to Beauty Queen, which gives a different facet to the book. Ashwini sir is sitting over here. He's done a fantastic book with us called Operation Khatma, which took place in 96 or in the 90s in Kashmir. And that talks about how smartly negotiations are handled. So terrorists were hiding in the Hazrat Balganj shrine. And, they knew that they wouldn't be attacked because it was a holy place. And how, a master coordinator, negotiator was called, how he moved them, and eventually what the army did. So, it has a different flavor to it. Or a very interesting book that we did recently was the Battle of Barki, which is in 65. So now basically what happened was, just to give you a line and you'll understand, this is about intellect. It's not about the war, it's about intellect. So Barki is a place which stands between Punjab and Lahore. It's a small place over there. And what had happened during the 65 war was that the Pakistani army was gaining momentum at certain places. So what the Indian army felt was that, if the Punjab border is something that is weakening, we should attack via the other borders, through Gujarat, through Kashmir, all those places. Unfortunately, what happened was that information got leaked out. So what the Pakistani army did was, and they were all camping at Barki, they sent their armies at those respective borders. The twist was that it was a deliberate leak. The Indian army had gone nowhere, but they separated the Pakistani army. And then a band of 120 men went and fought, some 5,000, 6,000 people, defeated them, and India could have marched into Lahore and captured it. They stood there, and it's the only incident, because India always has a policy that we will not cross the line of control at any point of time. They went, and for 13 days they controlled Barki till such time ceasefire was called. So there was a very realistic chance that Lahore could have been a part of India at that point of time. So, there are these different stories.
Yeah.
Every story
No, but I'd just
has
like to add here, one thing that's a very important predominant question here is how the game played out at that point of time was that the US was supporting Pakistan, and there was China on the other side, which was giving tacit support and technology. Technology was coming from the US. And from a geopolitical situation, what the US was trying to do was trying to create the Israel of the Southeast Asia by propping up Pakistan. Look at what a fab job they have done, in hindsight now. And India was this sleeping elephant that had not woken up yet. 62 had broken our back, and we were short of food grain, which is why Shastri took on that Shastri Vrat and said, for us, we didn't have enough sustenance, we didn't have enough food to eat. And Pakistan was getting all the benefits from. And so they had, at that time, bought in a technology or a tank which was supposed to be the patent tank, which is like the nuclear technology of today. It was a very powerful tank. It was just like the German Blitzkrieg. The advantage the Germans had in the Second World War is what the Pakistanis had. So at that very important juncture, before Barki happened, we were almost going to lose Kashmir. So the trade-off was that, okay, so you're going to take Kashmir? Fine, we'll take Lahore, which is where the ceasefire happened. So this Barki became a very important, significant chapter from a history perspective. And why do I know so much about it? Because me and Barkha have just wrapped a series, and I'm going to plug that series. Please watch it. It's quite a wonderful one. I'm also the story screenplay writer of that and creative producer of that show called Mukhbir. And Barkha has played a fantastic role of Begum Anar in that. It's historical fiction, and we've used a lot of the geopolitical situation to tell that story. So as a part of our research, we needed to know how the situation was, and then we've told the story. It's on Z5, so whenever you guys get a chance, do look it up.
I'm sure we will. I mean, he was telling me yesterday that it's the most viewed web series this year across all OTT platforms. So heartiest congratulations to the both of you.
One last question for Karan. Since all of you know he's a singer, actor, writer, which role do you enjoy the most and why?
I think I just enjoy being restless. I'm somebody who's a very busy body, and I can't do anything with half-baked, and which is what I advocate to everyone. So everyone tells me, how do you manage so much? And my simple answer to all of them is, I wake up early. So
he doesn't like half-baked things, which is why he collaborated with the book bakers.
So to answer that question, we were shooting for this series Mukhbir, and we would have a 7 o'clock shift, which would go on till. And as a producer or creative producer, I had to be there much after we had wrapped the shoot, which would mean that my day would end typically around 10, 11 o'clock. Would that stop me from doing my riyaz? No. That just meant I would wake up my neighbors at 4:30 in the morning and do my riyaz. Did it stop me from writing? No, it didn't. If I had to write something, then I would find that time between 4:30 and 6:30, those 2 hours, and make effective use of that to be able to still reach my shoot, finish the shoot, do the post-production. And so it's just about efficient management of time. And what drives me is that I can't do anything. I always say, without passion, I might as well be a tree. So I'm not a tree. So for me, if I have to do something, I have to do it with full heart. And what I honestly do is just effective use of time. So I enjoy singing, I enjoy concerts, I enjoy writing, I enjoy acting, And I definitely enjoy producing. So it's something that I can't, it's all my babies, so I can't put a finger on one.
Superb.
Okay, does anybody from the audience have any questions for Karan, Suhail?
Neither for Karan, not for you. It's for Barkha.
Oh my God. Why am I in the spotlight here?
When are you writing the story of your father's, war stories?
I'm so glad you brought this up. I'm going to ask her.
She should. As
It'll be
Suhail
good.
says,
After doing the Battle of Barki, we could do the Battle of Barkha.
God. No, but seriously, as Suhail said, these stories need to be documented for future generations. So when are you writing your father's stories? In collaboration with the book bakers.
My first into an author. Could that be any more inspiring for anyone? But as we speak, and as I mentioned my father, it just came to me, and hearing these two talk, it just came to me that why not? I should do this, and I'm literally imagining my father's pride, as I'm sure your father would have felt, my father's pride, if I ever got to writing down his stories, his sacrifices, whatever we as a family went through. So yes, Anirban, I think I'm seriously going to take that up. And Suhail, yes, I think we should.
Suhail is there on your left, I'm on your right, and I promise to give you and push you to do this book. So you have all our love and support.
Thank
you. We look forward to seeing in the next Litfest that we do here, your book on the counter out there. That'd be wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Dinesh, and I would like to ask the question to both the authors that are here. So how important do you think it is to pick some stories or all these stories, not if any particular, of war or from the army background, to put in study culture, or you can say a curriculum in school, so that the younger generation is more aware about what the sacrifices of the people of the country have made for them?
I think that's such a fantastic people 20s, not that we weren't ever in the 20s, I'm saying. So, we have we're a privileged lot, which was not the generation before us. We're a very privileged lot. We've got cell phones, we have pubs, we have so many avenues of entertainment and all of that. But what we're truly missing, which I also articulated earlier, was the fact that we have the wrong heroes today. Maybe famous cannot be the reason why someone's your hero. Whether he's a TikToker, whether he's a singer, whether he's an actor. Just because he's famous, he cannot be your hero. A hero has to have certain trademark qualities which you aspire to be. Like I said, when you talk about an army man, you know for a fact, like he said, that you sacrificed your today for our tomorrow. That's a hero. The fact that he's going to defend and you're not going to remember him. He's not fighting because somebody's going to write about him. He's giving up his life irrespective of that to create a safe haven for all of us. Now, these are real heroes. So when we are growing up, if you have the culture of finding the right heroes, you'll turn out all right. If not, the next generation will turn out all right. So it's very, very important that we have in-depth study of this to understand and aspire and create aspirations about these people, saying, be like them. And we'll have a much better society, not a society that's threatening to break into pieces with the kind of discourse. Have you ever noticed, we have lowered the discourse in our news channels, in social media. We're abusing our hero. Who's our hero? Somebody who's taking off their clothes. Who's our hero? Somebody who's abusing somebody. Journalists are not having discourses. They are abusing each other. If that's what your hero is, then we are in trouble, my friends. So the education at the right place at the right time when you're young, when you absorb things like a sponge, is the game changer here. That's what we need to do.